Rob Wright, who is the co-founder of Autism Speaks. Mr. Scott Badish is the president of the Autism Society. Mr. Mark Blaxell is a member of the board of directors of Safe Minds, and I would ask that Mr. Kelly introduce and make a short statement about the witness he helped bring here.
I thank the Chairman. One of the great honors I have is representing Northwest Pennsylvania and Mercyhurst College. Mr. McGarry, Bradley McGarry, is with us today. Mercyhurst is one of the leaders, if you didn't know this, around the country, starting in 1986, addressing these types of problems, and they have been the forerunner. Mr. McGarry has spoken all over the country about the initiatives that can be taken and the ability to help those with lesser degrees of autism to integrate into society and make great contributions. So, Mr. McGarry, it's so nice to have you here and representing Mercyhurst. You do great things. And in 2008, your program, the Asperger Initiative at Mercyhurst, is one that's being looked at all over the country and is a perfect model that lets us to go forward and address some of these issues. So, Mr. McGarry, thanks so much for being here.
I thank you both.
I yield back, Chairman.
Thank you. And we now recognize Mr. Michael John Carley. He's the Executive Director of the Global and Regional Asperger Syndrome Partnership. And last but not least, we recognize Mr. Ari Naiman. He is the President of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. Again, as you saw in the first panel, pursuant to the rules of this committee, I'd ask you all rise now to take your oath and raise your right hands. Do you all solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I have carefully viewed and all answered in the affirmative. Please take your seats. You are a large panel, and you have a lot to say. I would only mention that there are 20 groups behind you who were not fortunate enough to be seated with you. So please, to the greatest extent possible, make sure you finish right at 5 minutes so that we can get to Q&A, much of which will help with issues that may be beyond your opening statements. With that, we recognize Mr. Wright. I'm afraid your microphone is not quite on or close enough. Could you also pull it a little closer?
Okay.
There's a sort of a skill we gain here of getting to the mic and really getting to it. It goes with being a congressman, I'm afraid.
Well, let's see how we do here.
You have what it takes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chairman Issa, very much for having us, and Ranking Member Cummings, thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank Dan Burton for all the work that he's done over many years to bring awareness and attention to and discussion of and action on autism. Very, very important. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Smith, who has done an extraordinary job as well all over the country and with the coalition and many others, and I'm personally involved with him in many, so thank you for everything you have done for all of us. I want to say I'm here because of my grandson, Christian, who's now 11 years old. And my daughter, Katie, is sitting back here, and my wife, Suzanne. And he was a boy that was 2 years old, and we thought he was very precocious. He seemed to be brighter than average. He walked early. He had enormous vocabulary, and then he lost everything. And I'll tell you, without any secret, that my daughter, firmly believes that vaccines were the relationship that triggered him into this pit. So we lost a little boy that we knew. It wasn't like he was a disabled person who got more disabled. He was a boy, and we lost him. And that's what led us to found Autism Speaks. We could take care of Christian, but we saw so many others out there, and I traveled around the country, and I sat at meetings similar to the meeting you're having here, where I would ask questions about autism. I went to universities, I went to medical schools, and I got the worst answers imaginable. Actually, I heard some of the same answers here just a few minutes ago in the panel. They must be, they're on a Twitter thing or something. It was, we don't know, but we're sure. Or it's, we're sure, but we don't know. But we really don't know, but we're sure. And that was a lot of the issues. Why are the numbers so high and so forth? So we got into this and said, we called around to find like-minded people, and that's how Autism Speaks got founded. And we've been fortunate. We've raised a considerable amount of money. We have 250 full-time employees around the country. We have 90 walks. We have 400 and some odd thousand will walk for us here. We have activities outside the United States. But all of that's based on that little boy. And the fact that in all my business career, I was shocked that I was so ignorant of all the situation. And then when I got into it and tried to learn, I was even more shocked that nobody was helpful and that we were just trapped in a maze here of obviously escalating issues, all kinds of things. So I'm going to try to answer a couple of things, or at least bring some help here. We talked about the 1 in 88, which is exactly that is the U.S. number. Now, the CDC's is what they call a passive. It's a passive resource. They go around and they look at medical records that are existing. That's a variable. And they also look at school records. That's a variable. They do not talk to children. There's no clinical evaluation. They don't talk to parents or anything. And that partly accounts for some of the differences when you go around the country. Some schools have better records. Some schools don't. So whatever. And that's what they do. The Korean study that we financed, which is the most, it's the gold-plated model on how to do this. We went through the same process in Korea with Koreans, with Japanese, with Americans, and we ended up finding out that there was about 1% of the population, which is just what we had here. But then a second thing happened. Parents wanted to offer comments about what we were doing, because we were only doing the school records and all that sort of thing. And the school district said, fine, it's a 100,000 population area in Seoul. And the school, we asked parents that wanted to come in that they could come in and offer comments and so forth. Well, they came in and had all kinds of issues, and we separated them out. It took 2 years. And out of that, we actually had 1% more of the entire community, of that same community, diagnosed with autism. But we brought people in. And so the number is 2.657%. I have no reason to believe that that number won't be duplicated in the United States with that methodology. That's why we're financing this effort is to convince the CDC that they don't actually have a disagreement with the number. Their position was, we don't have any money. We can't afford that. That costs more money. We only do this. And that sort of speaks for itself. But I'll also tell you that... If you could do that in summation, please. Yeah. I'll also tell you that we have... they spend almost no money on autism, $20 million, $30 million, including all of the safety issues. We could fix that in an hour for about $35 million a year on top of what they do. So the name of this committee, the oversight, government reform, there's a real issue there. I wish they weren't even involved with us, but they're the only ones that did prevalence. We are on page 7 of their two-page top priority list. And autism is right at the bottom of it. And I don't know why Dr. Boyle, but the nature of, I guess, being in a larger thing, they won't want to say, we have no money, we don't have any priority, I can't get anybody to hear, and I don't complain enough. So this is about speaking up.
Thank you very much. And we now go to Mr. Badish. With the same microphone problem you will all have. It's an acquired skill, and I appreciate you all for learning it.